learn a science experiment that looks like magic, and learn how submarines work in today's episode of Science Meets Literature. Oh, hey guys, welcome to Science Meets Literature. This is Portsmouth Public Library's program where we show you really cool science experiments and then teach you the science behind them. Today we're going to be working on something called a Cartesian diver, and that's what I have here. Show you really quick first what this looks like. It looks like magic, at least I think so, because I kind of think that science is magic. So, all that's happening here is that we're manipulating the water inside. And you can even do little sort of tricks with it, make it stop in the middle, act like you have mind control powers. It's kind of a fun thing for people who don't know how it works. It does look like magic. So I'm going to walk you through how to make this and then explain the science behind how it works. Let's get started. All right. To do this experiment, really you only need a few things. You need a straw, you need some paper clips. I recommend getting the smaller size. You need a cup filled with water up to the top, and then you need a bottle also completely filled with water up to the top, and you do have to have the cap that can secure it on tightly, okay? So, putting this together is pretty simple, but it is an experiment that you're going to have to play around with to get the right weight. So all you're going to do is take a straw, and you can cut this to any size you want. Around 6 inches or so usually is pretty good, but you could use an entire straw and bend. This one is about 5 inches. So what you're going to do is you're going to bend it. You want to try to get it about as close to in the middle as you can. It does not have to be perfect though, okay? Once you have it bent, then you're going to take one of your paper clips and then you're going to put it into each of the openings so that it kind of holds them together. Now you can also use bobby pins if you have that, and that'll work really well too to hold the pieces together. Okay? So this is held together now with one of our clips. Now one is not enough to weigh it down so that we can get this cool rising and sinking and falling effect. If you just put a straw with only a little bit of weight, it'll just float on the top. No matter how hard you squeeze this, it's not going anywhere. So what we have to do is play around with adding weight onto it. And we call this weight that allows things to sink ballast. So all you're going to do is whatever size straw you have, you're just going to keep adding paper clips until you get enough that it will start to sink. And the reason that we have this cup of water is it's much easier to test in the cup of water than it is to try to put through the narrow opening here and then be able to pull it back out if you don't have the right weight. Trust me. You do not want to keep having to dump all the water out, making a mess, and then filling it back up. Make life easy on yourself. So, we're going to check and see how many it takes for us to get it to sink. You really want it to not totally sink. You want just the very tip of it to be above the water. You kind of want it bobbing. If you've ever gone fishing, you sort of want it to be like a bobber on the water. So, you're going to put it in, and I don't know if you can see here, but this is actually sticking out about this much on top of the water. That much is above the water, and that's too much. We want just the very tip. So I have 2 on right now. We'll add a third, and we'll see what that looks like. Depending on the size of your straw, it can take quite a few, especially if you're using a full-size straw. All right? With that, we've now moved from here up to here. I'm going to try just one more, and I think we'll be at the perfect amount of ballast. Perfect. So for me, in my size, about 5-inch straw, like this, it took about 4 paper clips total. And that gets me exactly where I need to be. Like I said, it might not work that way exactly for you, so don't get discouraged. Play around with the length of the straw or the number of paper clips that you put on there. All right, now the ultimate test is we're going to add it into our 2 liter, and again, you want this as full as possible, and I'll explain why in a second. And as you've seen, it doesn't have to be a 2 liter. Any size bottle will work. Just make sure it's filled right to the top. So we're going to try this out here. All right, so you can see here that it is floating right at the top, and a lot of it is below the surface of the water. Make sure that you put your lid on before you squeeze this. Some people get really excited and want to see, oh man, what happens? Well, what happens is water comes up and goes everywhere. So, lab safety tip, keep your lids on securely. All right? Now, all there is to it, to see if we succeeded, is you're going to squeeze the sides of your bottle. Now, how hard that you have to squeeze it depends on a lot of different things, but you'll just have to play around with it. So, let's see if this worked for us. There we go. And once you let go, it'll rise right back to the top. And you can kind of play games with this and see if you can get it to stop like right in the middle and see what you can do here. Yeah. I'm a lab professional, guys, don't worry. So how does that happen? Well, let's find out. All right, guys, so let's explain how this works through my magnificent art skills. So here is your clip and straw when it is at the top, when it's floating just at the water's surface level. The blue is the amount of water that's inside. This orange is all of the air that's inside. So what's happening is when you are not squeezing, it's just floating happily in this state. When you do apply pressure, you're forcing the water level to rise. All this air gets condensed and packed really tightly together. It's a lot easier for air to pack tightly than for water to. And think of it this way, the more water, which is dense and heavier, that you have inside the straw, the heavier the overall straw is going to be. So when you are squeezing, you're just adjusting the level of water that's inside. And that allows it to rise and sink depending on how much pressure you're applying to it. It's pretty simple, but it works like magic. How we see this in the real world is with submarines. Submarines work almost exactly like this. So when you have a submarine and it's floating at the surface, it has tanks filled with air. When it's ready to dive, it fills those tanks with water until it gets to where it wants to be. When it's ready to float back up to the surface, it actually just shoots high pressure air and ejects all the water from the tanks, and then it floats. Who knew science was in every aspect of our world? And we can demonstrate it with such simple concepts like this. That's cool. All right, guys, thanks for joining us for another episode of Science Meets Literature. I hope you had fun and learned a little something. Check back with us each month if you're interested in the science experiments that we're doing. We'll have a new one every month out. If you're interested in any science books, we have plenty for you to choose from. Just come into the library. You can go to the reference desk and we'll be happy to hook you up with your next great read. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next time.